So, welcome everyone to Let's Talk Business series by Realty-NXT. And I'm delighted to have you guys today in this panel because it's a special for us. It was surprising also for us that in 4 years of Realty-NXT, this is the first time I'm having all the powerful women coming together for this panel discussion. So, I'm looking forward to have a discussion with you guys, not just about the gender diversity, but also get some gain insights or expertise on the Indian real estate market and proptech market.
Thank you so much for having us. It is a pleasure, first of all, to be in such kind of a setup, which is not usual or everyday, and also to have these amazing two women. And hopefully, we all will speak about few interesting things here, which we do not do on an everyday basis.
I'm looking forward to that. So, before we delve into the discussion, let our viewers know from each of you your introduction about your respective companies, and then we can get into the discussion. Starting from you, Ayushi.
Sure. I'm Ayushi Ashar and I'm director with Ashar Group. I lead the acquisitions, sales, marketing, design strategy, and customer relations for Ashar. And we're a 22-year-old organization now. Homegrown that way, my father started it, and now it's a second generation business. And I finished my graduation, undergrad actually, from the US, and then I'm back here, taking it on forward now.
Garima?
Thank you for having me. So, a little background about me. I have been part of a couple of high growth startups as a founding member. I was a part of Oyo Room as a very nascent early member when we were just starting on. After that, I was the founding member of the Momsco, a digital FMCG brand. And now I am the co-founder and the CTO of Enlite, which is a proptech specializing into building automation and decarbonizing buildings.
Well, I have ventured into two spaces. I have two companies and I'm a founder for two companies. One is Vibe Reality, where I am a co-founder as well as the CEO. My other company, where I'm a founder and the managing director, which is a Dubai-based company, have my own office in Dubai at this moment and currently managing real estate from both the spaces.
Great. Thank you guys for introducing yourselves and introducing your respective companies. Now let's get into the discussion. So first, foremost, which I want to ask from all of you. So given the evolving consumer preferences which we are noticing and the emerging opportunities that are coming for home buyers in the Indian real estate market, is there a particular trend or is there particular opportunities that you have noticed is going to shape the future of the real estate market? Let's start from you, Ayushi.
So I think trends is a very short-term thing, and I've previously I've worked in the US and I've seen a lot of development with real estate, especially in that front because it's a more mature market for real estate. And hence I'm saying trends is short-lived, but I think overall we're seeing a transition from real estate just being product or design driven into a more system and service oriented kind of platform. What I mean by that is services and system oriented businesses like student housing, senior living, a lot of co-working spaces now. So all of these different types of almost businesses are arising out of real estate, which is a very interesting trend on the commercial side, and which slowly leads into REITs and fractional ownership and a lot of those type of more mature financial markets when we talk about real estate. On the residential side, I think consumers are now more aware of what they want in terms of design and the practicality. So they before they even come to a product, I think they've done their ground research on what they really want from the project, and for them when they come in, it's more of, okay, does it tick most of the boxes or not? And I think that maturity for a consumer to have today, I think that awareness is what really is the shift in the residential segment, I feel.
True.
So actually there are very interesting numbers to look at. although we're into automation space, but at the end of the day, our consumer is a person who's an occupier or a developer of the building. If you look at a commercial number, last year, 38 million square feet of an area was leased. And the most interesting part is that for the first time, 25% of that total lease amount was by co-working spaces. During COVID, everything thought that the segment is just going to die. And the reason why the builders are flourishing right now is to give their entire occupancy to a co-working space provider. So that is something which has seen a huge shift. In fact, large global companies who never would have thought of giving up their spaces, they are giving up their spaces to be moving to places like these. Secondly, the high spurt growth in your tier 2 towns, because with all the hybrid working that happened, people were open to opening satellite spaces so that people could live closer to their houses. And now if you look at a market like Pune or Indore or even Ahmedabad for that matter, the amount of projects that are coming up is more than what is coming up in any of the metro cities. Hyderabad is literally 25% of the entire Indian market. Residential again has some very interesting numbers. There was a point where everybody used to say that millennials is the renting generation of all the times. Today, it is the only buying generation. And what has brought about this shift is during COVID, that was the generation which stayed at home, which also realized the need of larger spaces. So what it has resulted in, the format earlier, which was more acceptable, was 2.5 BHKs. Now that has become 2.5, 3.5 BHKs. Builders are rethinking their strategies on the kind of homes that they should have for these millennials. Also, the purchasing power parity has increased. Affordable housing is being relooked at because from the 70 lakh to 1 crore of the houses, their absorption would be around 56% before. Today, it has gone down to 47%, and that increase has gone to the houses which cost anything between 1 to 1.5 crores. And an interesting number is that 52% of the buyers last year was actually the millennials. They have become the decision makers. So they want luxurious houses. They want houses with amenities. They know that, if their family, their kids and their parents have to stay here, they want larger places. They want pools and they want their clubhouses. So how we used to envision a house before, I think that entire thought process has changed. They are willing to spend. This asset class is not going away anywhere, no matter what people say. Because if you look at a rental rate in about 4 years, it increased 7.6% for residential, but last year the increase was 8.9%.
Yeah.
So these are what the numbers are looking like, and I think as and when the generation keeps shifting more after millennials, the Gen Z, which is going to come, they have again very astute preferences for they're looking at. I think every generation knows more and more of what they want, and it's just not a commodity anymore, but it's an essential space to their being. So I think that has brought about a great inflection point from where we stand today.
True.
I think highlighting more from a perspective of what today India is and what probably or where the global markets are going. Since I deal with both the markets, I think there's a lot of shift. Per se, what I probably would want to comment over here is from an Indian buyer. Now an Indian buyer has become a global buyer. So the competition earlier was only with Indian companies or probably, on a performing basis, some top level companies with each other, but now the competition is global. Yeah. So the one thing which we have seen a shift which has happened tremendously is that today a buyer is evaluating option not only in India, but they are evaluating options globally. Whether it is a Portugal, whether it is a Dubai, probably UK, US, everywhere, there is a possibility of the consumer to consume the property or purchase a property. So the evaluation, which was always based upon product, pricing, location, has gone up to now that limit that now people talk about ROI, about trading in properties. The term trading in properties were never there. But now there is a particular terminology which is trading in property. Buyers purchase the property for about 6-7 months and they offload the property in 6-7 months. they gain a ROI of about 15%, 18%, rental income of about 8 to 10 to 12%. That's how global markets are happening, and hence this entire shift of how we are selling the properties in India has completely changed. We very often meet investor who question us that whether to buy a property in Bombay at Bandra or Andheri is more useful, or buying a property at Dubai would be more beneficial, and because the amount what they're investing is absolutely the same. So that consumer shift has happened. The second part of it is the seller, or I would say the guys who are selling, the salespeople. Earlier the means of selling used to be only maybe like a digital, or there will be a broker who would just go out and say that, hey, this is a great property, and there's a lead which was generated. Coming back to the topic, which is AI, it was just based out of getting the lead, catering it properly, and then nurturing it. I think the newer ways and means now have come to market the property. It's about videography, it's about how you potentially show them the benefits of the product, the two country compliances, whether it is permanent residencies or residency visa or golden visa. So the way how the properties are marketed, the reason why they should be sold are very different. So this is like a mind shift. This is like, I would say, we've become more global in our approach. So that's a major shift which I've kind of seen over a span of 15 years now in the realty space.
So that's something interesting you said. What we are selling at the rate in Mumbai is similar to Dubai.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So I would say, being from Bombay, and I remember when I turned 32 and I bought my first house, it was a huge achievement, especially in the Mumbai market. But how Garima had put, this is a huge debate going when it comes to Bombay market. Younger generation, even the generation who is doing a lot of videos, be in Instagram and all, they are saying, hey, boss, we are not going to buy a house in Bombay. I rather stay in Lower Parel in fancy apartment on a rental rather than buying that, because the EMIs or that money, I'll be stuck in the city forever.
Absolutely.
So do you think place like Mumbai, where aspiration is buying home, right? I aspired, if I have achieved something, I have equalize it with the buying home. But today's generation is like, I rather rent a house, be in a fancy place rather than be stuck with the EMIs, or rather be stuck with the home loan, and do not buy a house at all, or make a lot of money, stay in a good place, and maybe go shift to another city. So do you think this kind of behavior will see more happening in a place like Bombay market? Why I'm asking you, especially from you, Ayushi, because you're in the developer side, you must be noticing even in Thane, we are seeing it's getting developed. Now we are seeing a lot of projects coming in, Oberoi coming in, making announcement with the 5-star hotels and everything. And we have noticed there's a pattern we're going to touch upon in Thane also. In 4 years, maybe Thane is also not approachable in terms of pricing. What is your take? Do you think the younger generation will be like, rental is more going to happen rather than buying?
So I think there are two sides to this answer, and I'm saying this from experiences that we have had with our projects, both in Thane and in Bombay and Bandra and those type of markets. I think one is, of course, Bombay is a great rental market because there's a lot of migration. People come in, people go out, people move around within Bombay. So I think the rental market is here to stay in a city like Bombay, where the real estate prices are higher than majority part, or highest, one of the highest in India. So, but that being said, I think most of these people who kind of migrate through Bombay as well, there's always an aspiration to buy their one kind of safe space within the city premises. And I think with people who've lived in Bombay, they can't do with living outside Bombay because they're just so used to the flavor of the city that they want to have that safe space that we're talking about within the city premises. So that aspirational value, I think, is always there for people who are moving into Bombay. Second is people who are already born and raised in Bombay, in markets like Andheri, Bandra, Santa Cruz, where they already have a family home, which is which is quite a large segment of Bombay, especially in the luxury markets that we talk about. There, in fact, we've seen a lot of people kind of buying a second home because they want to expand their families, and the family eventually wants to have two places, one for maybe the son or the daughter who have kind of grown out of their space and they kind of want their own space. So they're looking for smaller apartments which maybe are not, the luxury, the complete luxury package, but it's still their own safe space that they can call home. So that's again a trend that we have seen a lot, in fact, in the luxury segment. So I think it's a very customized need, and in a city like Bombay, there's scope for, I think, all types of projects and housing. Whether you take it, there are now we're working on a project which is more so on student and rental housing, and we have seen huge traction. I mean, before we can even go out, we've had people come in and say, okay, we want 700 rooms and we want to kind of operate this. And parallelly, we've not launched our luxury project yet, which is 4,000, 5,000 square feet floor plates, and we've had demand coming in that we want to kind of move into these type of luxury spaces. So I think Bombay is a city where it's a wide spectrum, and everyone can have their share in it. But I feel with the millennials, there eventually that aspirational value is there with regards to real estate, and somewhere it kind of comes down to buying their own real estate at some point in the life cycle.
You guys want to add anything to this?
No, I completely agree with her that what's happening is obviously there's demand which is there. It's decoding the right demand at the right time. I think that's extremely important. And as I said earlier, also the markets are growing. So yeah, I mean basically analyzing that factor. If a developer at this time gives a right product, decode it well in the market, I think everything rest is it's the best time, basically.
Garima, you want to add anything to this?
Yeah, so to what I already said, that millennials definitely are in an age group now where they need to buy. They are done with their nomadic lifestyle. But if you look at the newer generation, the ones that we see shooting their videos in nicer houses, next, they will be right now, once they're out of the nomadic phases, they will be looking at buying, because this is a perpetual asset class. You know that once you've invested in it, this is not going anywhere. It's like a gold kind of a thing. That, okay, I'm paying for it right now, but I have not seen the times ahead. At least I have a safe shelter over me. So with everything being said, people might look at figuring out whether they have to stay in Thane or whether they have to stay in Navi Mumbai, because not everybody can afford a Bandra. But the city, the rental yields are uncomparable. They are unmatched. You could go to any other city and you're not getting that. Probably you can get a house here, go start staying in Pune, pay for your EMI from the rentals that you're going to collect. That will make a lot of sense, and you can still stay in Pune and pay the lesser amount that you have to. But luxury is the next best selling thing. Actually, it's the only selling thing. Whether these are the cars or these are the luxurious houses, people have started realizing their value. It's no more for the status part. They know that eventually in any kind of a scenario, this is what is going to help them out. So probably, in fact, we should see a lot more buying also happening even in a market like Bombay. I have seen two builders being at the same place, same square footage of an area. One is only 4x times more expensive than the other, and the 4x time expensive is 100% occupied. And there's no difference, by the way, in the two buildings, and they're probably 100 meters from each other. So people are like, okay, expensive, it'll take me somewhere. So people are okay with that.
True. So the Indian government has implemented, a lot of policies and reforms, such as your PMAY, your RERA. So in your opinion, what kind of impact it has had on the market? And according to you, what changes or recommendations would you guys say can add on more to the, enhance the further industry growth and transparency? Let's start with you, Nidhi.
I think these schemes are extremely beneficial in bringing a very normal class person to think about an option like buying a house. I think that's absolutely right, that with the rates going up for the bank or the mortgage rates coming up, it becomes for any middle class person to really imagine paying that kind of an interest plus the principal, the first tranche of installment becomes extremely difficult. I think how government today has definitely given an incentive to buy a particular property, yet the norms, to be very candid, I think the norms needs to be more clearer. They are more technically sound in terms of the square meter or probably the affordability range which is there. I think if the clarity on these parameter connecting to an individual income depending upon the tier cities should be more clearer. Once that is done, I think the layman can understand that language of when and how they can kind of invest. So just to put it very simply, they need to be classified, which means that the language needs to be very simple, very understandable. They need to be very clear upon the segment of income, as clear as how income tax rules are today, or a GST rules are, or maybe transparency about what would be the normal norms on stamp duty are. Still, there is a lot of ambiguity on all these concepts like PMAY or a lot of things. So probably when a salesperson joins, we kind of educate a salesperson, and despite of the fact that he's kind of worked 15 years, 10 years, 5 years in this sector, he or she takes certain time to understand these concepts. For a layman to understand these concepts, depending upon the square meter or the kind of incomes, I think becomes a little difficult. So standardization of these concepts is what I strongly feel needs to happen. Till the time these concepts become understandable, it is very difficult for a layman to really absorb it and become more popular and common.
True.
Yeah.
Garima, you want to add anything?
So especially with PMAY, when it came out, like everybody, I was also a skeptic. But you're a skeptic until and unless you don't see what is happening. The PMAY, especially urban, has been phenomenal. So the idea was initially to have at least 20 million households being touched by it. And today we are sitting already at 1.3 million households being developed because of that.
Yeah.
Especially in the rural areas, people have used these schemes. And I would say that it makes me so happy when you're skeptic about something and you see that happen. It has worked so well. In Maharashtra, you go to the remotest of the places. There are people who have finally a shelter on their heads because they got subsidized from the government. So they had to put in some amount of money. So if ever somebody dreamt of having something which they were able to save, I believe that it has been phenomenal, and rural has definitely benefited, but I'm yet to see that in urban. I have not seen so many takers on the PMAY urban. Maybe the idea is that probably when a person is buying a house, they think, okay, a smaller amount of money, what is this subsidy going to do for me? A lot of unawareness definitely is there. That is a big problem. When you go to buy a house, nobody is actually telling you around the different schemes which definitely exist, and especially if you're a female buyer, it's more than even PMAY. And nobody's talking about it. And I think the problem with this industry is that a lot of things have been introduced at either state level or at a country level also, but there is no centralized way to view it or to understand it. So as a buyer, you end up being very confused. It's more by hearsay. You talk to a broker, you talk to a developer, maybe you talk to a certain set of friends, and that's how the buying mechanism is made. Nobody is really sitting and discussing, okay, this scheme exists. Have you used this? Okay, there's a 1% discount if you're buying as a woman, a woman buyer. That does not exist. In RERA also, government has tried to do good, but again, RERA is not a very old method that has been introduced. So despite of a RERA being there, if you think about NCR and the different cases which have happened where people have bought these houses and they never saw the light of the day, despite of such a thing being in place, that transparency still either a buyer does not know it, they are not educated about it, or somebody really has not brought it about the right way. So last month, the RERA has spoken about QR codes being allocated to all the properties where a person can go and scan and all of these details. Now it has come out in the newspaper. Probably 3 of us, 4 of us sitting here because we are in this domain, we read about it.
True.
But the buyer class is
They
a
don't-
huge class.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
will not know. They don't
Yeah.
know what these QR codes are. It came in the newspaper once and it's gone now. So there has to be better methods. How you try to educate as RBI not to do certain transactions. You try to make the people aware of the fraudulent services. It is something that really government needs to push also to an extent where what they've done with the RBI. People know what they do not have to do. Here, people neither know what they have to do nor they know what they do not have to do. So they end up doing nothing. So probably a push at a central and state level would be really helpful. And of course, people who are into the space, either building the spaces or selling the spaces, maybe if they took some onus on them to make the eventual buyers aware, because when you make the buyers aware, they also know that you're a more credible organization, and definitely they look at you very, very differently. But yeah, so things have existed, not utilized properly, underutilized, and maybe it really still needs more time and much more impetus.
No, I agree with you. The lack of awareness is there because personally, I've seen in rural places like in Uttarakhand also, where I have spoken. I'm from Uttarakhand, so I have spoken about the PMAY. Maximum of them are not aware of it.
Right.
Why? Because if their panchayat is not aware, the gram panchayat, you make them aware now what is PMAY, how it's going to help, how women can be empowered, and all of that. They haven't reached that kind of information from any kind of the state government or anyone who should be assigned for these, gram panchayats. Ki talk to people about this PMAY or tell the banks, the local banks, that if women is coming for the bank loan and all, the awareness on the state front is in few states. In Maharashtra, of course, I'm seeing the progress. In UP, I'm seeing the progress. But still, I feel places like Uttarakhand, there are a few more states, I'm sure, who would be lacking in that kind of awareness. And as you said, we are from this industry. We might be knowing about it, we might talk about it, but especially the buyers, especially even not just in urban, even in rural areas in the smaller cities, are not aware about the details of it.
Right.
So, what's your take with that, Ayushi?
I think Garima covered it really well. Just one point with why PMAY in an urban setting, especially a city like Bombay or large parts of Maharashtra, is so PMAY comes with a certain space constraint and a budget constraint. That's how the scheme works. And with the MMR region, just because of how the affordability is, most of the projects kind of don't fall in that PMAY category. And a lot of representations kind of have been done on, kind of changing that segment, because the affordability criteria in the MMR region is slightly different from when we look at the other parts of, rural India. So I think just nitty-gritties of that, or nitty-gritties like that, which is why we don't see as much of it kind of picking up in the urban segment. But I think that, the more we work on it and the more, I think the vision that the PM has was very clear. And I think the more we work on it and the more we work with it, will we be able to, tackle all of these problems. Second, with regards to RERA, I think one thing that RERA has been able to do is it has been able to bring back trust into real estate. I think there was a phase that real estate went through when no one kind of wanted to associate with real estate. I mean, it was much before, I came in, and I came in kind of almost a year or so after RERA came about, and it was such a drastic change. One of the reasons why I saw a really bright future in real estate is because of this type of industrialization, almost advent of industrialization that came into real estate in India. Because without that, how do you professionalize, right? How do you grow? How do you go beyond just your micro markets? Because you want to do good business. Whatever's happened, there are reasons why people did not want to go into real estate, but there are a lot of developers who want to do real good ethical business, because this is their bread and butter. They're not here to just scam people or any of that. We're here to do good business, and we're here to stay for the long term, because real estate is a long-term game. And RERA really brings back that trust and grounding for the developer and for the consumer more than anything else. And I think that after RERA, I think we saw the transition of real estate being just an asset driven business where the builder is waiting on, okay, price is going to increase, to almost an FMCG product where no, it's about inventory, you need to kind of sell it out. And of course that coupled with a lot of policies including the UDCPR where the FSI has now gone up, and so the prices are a lot more stable, which is a benefit for the consumers. Before, most of these global, whether you call it fund houses or even NRI customers, were skeptical coming to India because they didn't know where they were investing and when their money would actually be returned. But now because of RERA, I think that compliance level, that jitteriness has kind of gone in terms of the consumer's mindset. And I think Maharashtra RERA is kind of doing an exceptional job. There are other parts of the country, I think, that where RERA really needs it really needs more work, and maybe that's a push required from the central government. But I think MahaRERA is doing an exceptional job. The QR code has come in now. They're grading the developers, and as a developer I know how much of compliance we have to put into the system, otherwise our projects get flagged or we get circulars from RERA, and that's because they're proactive. And see, it's about training. It's not like we don't want to do those compliances, we're new to it. So yes, maybe it may take my team 3 months extra to kind of get in sync with it, but now they all know before I tell them that okay, all of these circulars have to be updated on RERA every quarter, and now they know it. And they're very happy to do it once that process is set. So because they understand the level of clarity it brings the sales, and in turn sales churns the entire cycle of collection, engineering, all of that, and that's how the business runs. And so I think a lot of good stuff is happening, and more push is required in certain areas, but I think that's a part of the cycle. We're in it, in the long run, and slow and steady I think things will take shape. And MahaRERA is especially proactive about it. We know that, so I think we're in a good place.
As you said, MahaRERA is actually, especially in India, is the only state which is quite proactive. In a lot of states, still the RERA is not being implied, or the policy is not being acted as aggressive as how MahaRERA is. And I think recently they also have put this mandate for the agents to do a training course and get a certificate, and then only you can become the agent, real estate agent or broker. So do you think this kind of certificate will help filtering out, I would say, broker market will become more professional? Will this kind of help?
Definitely. I mean, most of the other global cities have this type of a registration process and these type of testing and training, because the broker is kind of the first face to the consumer, sometimes even before the developer. So what the broker tells the consumer about real estate, about maybe the simple definition of carpet area or usable area or mofa area, it just changes the customer's psychology 360 degree. It has that power, because especially when you're listening to something from a third person, right? If I have a broker, I'm looking at them as a guiding force. I'm looking at them to guide me, maybe go through 5 developers and then help me make the right choice. And so that's why the broker's fundamentals have to be very strong, and I think it's much needed.
Nidhi, you want to add to this?
See, all these concepts, which is to have a license or to conduct a training program, is absolutely common in the global markets. And it's extremely interesting to know that India is now also recognizing that factor, that the broker per se needs to give the right knowledge to people. Reason being very simple, that whatever developer is offering as a product, I think that can only go to the consumer in the right manner if the intermediary which is there really talks right. And I think it's extremely important that these stands are becoming more clearer. So if you see these days, the segment of channel partners have been divided into 3 parts largely. The ICPs, who are institutional channel partners, you have RCPs who are regional channel partners, and then you have all these small time brokers also. So in a particular launch, you have almost about 50% market which is in the hand of ICPs. And yes, that kind of a training, because they themselves are institutions having 5,000 people underneath. So it's extremely important for their training part. It's very important for how and where they are going, and not only that, even the marketing aspect, since RERA also talks about how you can market that. So all of these aspects covered in RERA, I think it makes it more feasible for any developer at this time, and also is very safe.
So, in the context of the growing importance of sustainability and green initiatives, which are the project or any particular project or example that you have noticed which has successfully, implied sustainability or has incorporated sustainability? If you guys want to talk on that front, any project, any particular initiative that has been taken, especially in real estate front?
I think Hriday MCHI right now has taken up a big initiative, especially for the next 2 years. The vision is to promote sustainability a lot, to do a lot more work with green energy and in green buildings. So I think that's one. If I talk about an example, I can't think of an example right off the bat that comes to my mind. But one place where I was right now very recently was, it's again not an Indian example, but it's One Vanderbilt in New York. It's one of the most recent developments there. It's a high rise again, and the entire building is based on clean energy, right from their elevators to the glass panels that they've used, to the IGBC rating, to the building code, to all of that. So I think in India we're at a nascent stage still, and that's why I use an international example. And why I say this is because I think we have just gotten past the roti kapda makan, very early basic bare minimum requirements, and now we're thinking about living better, living more consciously, living what we can give back and what we want to leave our future generations with. I think those are very conversations of now that we have started having, and that's translated to the consumers as well, right? Of course, as developers, we're very cognizant of the fact that we have to develop better, because our buildings are structures that are going to outlive us all. But the consumers also have to feel that, because I may invest X amount of money into making the building more sustainable and make it a green building and get a platinum IGBC rating, but if the consumer doesn't value it, or doesn't, of course it comes at a price, right?
Yeah.
And if the consumer doesn't value it or is not equally conscious about it, it's a hit or a miss, in that segment, and that's a hit on the developer then. So yes, there are certain projects that can take that hit, where we as developers definitely want to do better, but there are certain projects which are very tight, which can't take that hit. So that's the practical truth of sustainability. That being said, I think it is a step that we have to take in the future, because we have to build better, we have to build for the long term, and there's a lot of amazing technology now that can be adopted. Lot of Indian made things that we're looking at now, that we're also exploring as an organization. So I think lots of scope on the sustainability path going forward.
So are there any initiatives or any milestones for Ashar Group in this front?
Yeah, we're working on getting our most of our buildings at least IGBC Gold certified, if not platinum. We've already had one building that we've delivered now that is IGBC Gold. That's in Thane. That's a residential project. That was one of our first ones. Apart from that, we do a lot of sustainability initiatives within our complexes, but now the endeavor is to really take that a notch further and at least do gold, if not platinum, in the projects that we can accommodate that in. We have a project in Pali Hill again, that's IGBC Gold, and most of our future projects. I think that's the bare minimum, and we have a team that's working specifically on research and development as to how to reduce the carbon footprint that we're creating, how to reduce just the usage of glass. I think there's a report that I read recently that said that BKC temperatures are just 2 to 3 degrees higher because there are so many glass buildings around it compared to the rest of Bombay. I have not personally checked as to how true it is, but I believe the sources, because it actually, glass has that type of impact, and so we're exploring a lot more in terms of technology and maybe other avenues as to what we can work with going forward, and we have a lot of good architects who are helping us with it. So hopefully in the next run of projects that we have in our next pipeline, we should be able to do that.
So Garima, Enlite has been quite active in this front, right? Has there been any project or have you seen any kind of initiative where they have prioritized sustainability?
So I'll tell you, this is really interesting. When people started talking about sustainability, which is really long back now, it was actually a buzzword, and in India also it would be a buzzword. Now we make a technology which is called Know Your Building. Know Your Building helps you measure and manage from your usage of energy to your usage of water, indoor comfort, air quality, employee well-being, pretty much everything. So when we actually commercially started deploying this, we saw that developers came forward and they wanted it. This is something we did not expect or anticipate either. We thought, if we were in any geography apart from India, probably it would play out better. But it's not like that. And I'll give you some amazing examples. In Pune, we work with a developer, coveted developer of Pune called Malpani. And they have these huge buildings, 15 floors, a lakh square feet of a floor plate. And they have rented it out to either different spaces or even different co-working spaces. And their tenants have not asked for it. They have done that. They have state-of-the-art buildings. And one fine day we get a call. They're like, we have taken a lot of solutions from you, but we also want indoor air quality. We want some monitoring. We are going to go for IGBC certifications. And there are other things. If you could help us in those designs, that would be amazing. We thought, okay, this was one of the cases. And the next thing which happened was there was another developer in Pune as well who said that, a lot of people are doing IGBC and you have already worked with somebody. So what is it that we can do? And when we went to Pune to meet all of these people, my first question was, but why are you interested? Is there a client pressure? They're like, we don't care. Because now people are building for the future. These 80% of the buildings which are going to last till 2050 have been created. So you have to make the existing sustainable, and it's not a buzzword anymore. People are conscious. For the first time, a solution like ours, which is a very non-glamorous solution in real estate, building management system. Honestly, if you say BMS, people will think it's battery management system. That's how unglam it is. Yeah. But for the first time, a solution which was always put in the basement is being discussed in the boardrooms because everybody is talking ESG. And when a Blackstone or a Brookfield says ESG, you really think that, okay, ESG. There are mandates. You really do not have options also a lot of times. In your AGRs, you have to submit what were your ESG reporting like in that E. If you're not doing anything about it, if you're not measuring your E, what do you do about it? These are few places. Then we also work with a lot of retail formats. Now, interesting thing is there, if you're working with somebody like a Skechers, Nike, or a Decathlon, they have mandates. So we work with all of these. In retail formats, they're pretty clear about it. I want all the reporting. Not even a minute of data can go here because I have to abide by my international compliances. I cannot miss it out here. I need to do all the reporting. So it becomes a mandate for us. Today, interestingly, amongst all the implementation that we've had 90% of the buildings who are either doing IGBC or they are doing Griha or they're doing GEM certification, because earlier what started out as a more marketing thing for a lot of people that, we're going to have it around it. They're also realizing what savings is it bringing about. Does having a IGBC standard or having a LEED certification, if it is reducing my energy consumption, if it's reducing my water consumption, why will I not do that? Because earlier sustainability was like, I have a nice facade. You see, there is so much greenery around. Go sit in the park. Yeah. That's what it would be. But what they're realizing is that actually utilizing what they could is bringing about a lot of efficiency to their operational spaces. We work in Middle East with a large developer called Aldar. Aldar's goal till 2030 is reduction of 80% of energy utilization today, and then till 2050 net zero building. Now, you can't create a net zero building. You're not going to start building a new building. They already have around 80 million of square footage under their portfolio. What are you going to do of that? Which means you need to have sustainable practices in the world which has been already built. So we do that. We see a lot of interesting companies cover the entire suite of real estate. So we are largely into the operational buildings. That if you're utilizing your energy in a certain way, or we'll tell you the indoor air qualities, we'll tell you the water consumptions, and then we will operate it and ensure it abides by those compliances. There are companies coming up in construction. There's a very interesting company based out of Delhi NCR. They make these bricks.
Yeah.
Which use 70% lesser of the carbon emissions which was otherwise generated. Interesting thing is that they don't have any inventory. Now they go to a developer, they say, if you're promising me so much, I'm going to just set up a space here and do it for you. They have so much demand and there's no supply that they have. There are companies which have entered into the cement space similarly, or a tile space, which are doing it by more sustainable practices. Again, now, one thing that people earlier used to talk about, and there was dearth of acceptance, was people think that this is an expensive proposition. Of course it is. When you are going to comply to something, even if you get a certification, if you do a course, you take a certification, it requires money, but it has over the time value.
Yeah.
It comes in your eventual savings. And when I say value, it means tangible value. You're going to see savings, you're going to see longevity, you're going to see much more operational efficiency. So being in the proptech space, I've seen people cover from construction till operations. Pretty much every part of it now includes sustainability. There's a company called View, which used to be a unicorn at some point, funded by SoftBank, which makes glasses. And it reduces your usage of energy inside by 85%. So there are takers in the market, and there are now serious takers in the market. When we go to even tier 2 places, people are not talking sustainability anymore. They're very sure about what they want. They're sure about the outcomes that they're looking at. They just don't know how to reach there. So with so many new companies coming up and penetrating that, they are also able to educate customers, and customers are conscious. Customers are conscious about longevity of what they are doing and everything else that comes from running those buildings, because you also will know that now people are not selling as much, at least the commercial places.
Yeah.
They are leasing them out. Now, when you lease out something, you still own that. You want to build it better. You want it to last longer. So I think there are companies doing superb job there, and I have to give it to a lot of developers, a lot of hotel owners, hotel chains who have mandates. ITC is largely on renewables today. You see their Gardenia or you see their Chola. Everything comes from renewable because they started doing decarbonization bit by bit, and today they have wind turbines, they have solar panels impaneled. So I think interesting times for everybody, and I'm sure more and more, it's only going to grow from here.
So I've noticed post-pandemic, because earlier proptech companies, few of them who are active in sustainability, had told me the same thing, that earlier everyone was like quite expensive. They're not looking the forward planning or the long-term future of it. But after post-pandemic, the conversation has changed, because now there's not just a requirement of certificate per press release bhej do. It's also about conscious effort and seriousness coming from the developer front. So what is your take on that, Nidhi?
No, I think sustainability is absolutely the lingo at this moment, and everybody is talking about it. Again, I think it's very, very encouraging to see the Indian developers getting into that zone, coming out of not only the talks, so during the design discussions, or probably how fundamentally the focuses are. I think developers have started talking about sustainability as a subject, as one of the agenda which can be taken to the market and can be sellable, can be an influence to the customer as well. I think one of the project which which has always fascinated me since I've kind of worked with that brand, and I specifically would name it, as one of the buildings known as Godrej One. at Vikhroli. I think I've kind of never seen that kind of a building ever. I mean, I travel internationally, have seen so many projects across international developers which are there. But this building is beautiful. I think it's, we always talk about developer to customer, but I think I would talk about developer to employees. I think being over there and working over there itself feels so brightened. Simple aspects like sunlight, simple aspects like how the entire ambience is. Do you really need some kind of a light when you're sitting in a daylight is one topic which nobody would have touched upon. But I think it's very, very beautiful to see that, till 4 o'clock there is an office where there is no necessity of a light. It's the natural light which comes in. Nice. So all those aspects, I think as a person who might not be knowing it very professionally, I would definitely say that has impacted that wow factor, not only for consumer, employees and all the key stakeholders have come over not as a concept but as an experience. So yeah, I think that's more important for me.
So tell me, Nidhi, we are going to talk about technology as we were speaking about sustainability. We have noticed technology and digital transformation have become the integral part of real estate landscape. So according to you, what are the current, in Indian proptech company, what are the current innovative or notable innovations or solutions that you have noticed that could transform the industry?
I'll keep it very simple because I think, let's go to the basics. I think the core of any sales today, or probably for everybody, I think sales is extremely important, but that's how your cash flow happens. Now, the core of every marketing and sale is about getting the right client base, right? And to keep it very simple, earlier the acquisition of that data was never based on analytics, was never based on the study for that particular zone, demography, or probably that kind of a TG. I think it's so interesting to see that a simple platform like FB, Insta, LinkedIn today can cater to that kind of people who are looking for that kind of a property, that area. The segmentation of properties are happening beautifully today through the proptech platform. That's part number one. Part number two is, I think from an aspect of design, there is so much of data to go for analytics when it comes to proptech base. So today, if you want to make certain kind of projects, you want to kind of go deep dive into what could be the right pricing. Would one really go in putting that kind of a cost? Would that price be taken by or absorbed by a consumer? I think everything, the answer is there on the internet today, or probably that kind of a research base. I think the overall environment has become so inclusive because of that. We'd be something which you want to, you want to socially network, you want to know people, you want to connect, you want to acquire some kind of a knowledge. I think PropTech has become, has made the life of people, corporates, so easy today to take the decisions. So that's the major influencer for the corporate. The right place, right investment at the right time is what is happening at this time. So I think, yeah.
So Garima, you're quite active in proptech domain, right? So according to you, which is the current notable innovation which can transform the industry?
Actually, the premise is that real estate was the only industry which was not innovated. So now people saw a huge gap. And everybody saw. Now, the interesting thing about real estate is it's not a industry, it's multiple industries within one industry. Yeah. So now there are different touch points which have been impacted at scale. So what started with search and discovery, long back there used to be a 99 acres and a makan.com. Yeah. Now people have reinvented even that. You can be sitting at home and you could have these virtual tours. So it has started right from the search and discovery, which is pretty interesting. And again, with the millennials coming in to play and the ones who are the buyers, they are digital natives. They want to search more. They will talk to 4 friends of theirs or 8 friends of theirs. I'm sure they will not have more than that. And then they will go out on a rabbit hole of discovery. They will find out that, is it investment worthy? Is it not worthy? Does it look nice? What does my furniture look like inside this? Because those are the tools which have been provided today with commencement of so much of a technology, especially AI and AR and VR. They can imagine themselves in those houses. So that is on the search and the discovery part. Second thing is the operations part. Now, this is something which was largely untouched because this is not a very B2C space. This is very B2B. It means that a developer has to be conscious enough to think about the tools to be put in place. Earlier, there wouldn't be. There would be just very simple systems of procurement. So much things have come. Let's start making a building. Okay, this is towards possession. Let's complete a building and move on from there. Now they have also, with years and decades of development, understood that what are the parts that need to be efficient. Is it the construction itself? Is it even getting the materials delivered to where they are going to start developing this property? And a lot of data comes in handy. Where should my next property be? What kind of people and rates will it attract? And now, once that operations have started, how am I going to make this more efficient? I have built this, whatever. It is no more about, okay, I have built this, I'm just giving it to people, I'm just going to keep receiving the CAM charges. It's no more about that. It is about, if I'm making this more efficient and if I'm owning this building for 30, 40 more years, what are the different tools which can come into play, for which a technology like ours, or even a lot of other technologies, the ones who make platform of procurement, they can even tell you what all have you procured, how much are you going to procure, the future value of your building, the space and occupancy analytics which is there. Again, they can tell you that you can optimize it for so many people. If more than this, probably it will not give you more enter yields, but eventually it will be a very over provisioned building and you will end up spending more on that. There are trackers which will tell you your entire ESG matrix around it. So while we are in the E part, people are concentrating on S and G also, for which again you need data. And today you just can upload something and within the blink of the eye, you'll get that data. Then there are interesting things like a fractional ownership of property. Yeah. You invest in mutual funds, you invest in stocks. Why can't you invest in a house or a property? Because not everybody can shell out a 2 crore rupees. Not everybody has the salary to have a certain EMI. But if somebody can provide you now a way to enter a building and get rental yields out of it, and a lot of good developers are benefiting from it. I only thought that it was the people who are starting up are doing all of this, but interestingly, there are a bunch of developers in Maharashtra itself who understood this and they are ahead of the game. They are building properties just to give them on a fractional real estate. And apart from that, you look at a technology like a chat GPT. Now, that exists for all the aspects of the world, but real estate is not going to use it. Real estate, because it has been a slight laggard when it has come to technology adoption, because it's always like, but how much money will I save or get from this? That is what it was always about. But today, they are also understanding, taking this technology probably and making my people more efficient. My person cannot be sitting for 3-hour shifts 3 times a day. If I use this technology, this person can just sit for 2 times a day and the technology will take care of it. So whether it is managing the whole building or manning the security and the surveillances, there are so many technologies which have come up on that, from perimeter fencing to how many people come inside. In fact, we came up with an interesting solution in COVID, where we made access control device in which if you had COVID, which was then detected by the app that we had, in which I don't remember, unfortunately, the app name now, which would detect. Arogya Setu, sorry. It was so big and I forgot. So it was enabled with Arogya Setu. So if you were unsafe, you couldn't enter the door because the access control just wouldn't open for you. And we had developers who were so interested. They were like, this is what I want like tomorrow. Just put this now. So we've seen our fair share of interesting upticks in proptech, but we've also seen similarly people doing fractional, people doing, apart from discovery, people have started buying houses online. There are a bunch of companies which are selling that and there are customers which are buying that. So what people used to think that, this touch point is very necessary. I'm not saying it's not necessary, but people are still now more open and more acceptable to different ways of buying a lot of things. And I think in next 1 year, we'll see a lot more things. And I'm just saying 1 year itself. The technology in real estate is changing very fast, and they are also because seeing a lot of acceptance and investment in the space, which earlier, if you are in real estate space, you're making something for real estate, nobody would touch it. Because they'd be like, the sales cycle is so long. At what cycle is your product getting sold? Now they know that, okay, there are different solutions to different cycles. So I think a lot of burgeoning startups or prop tech companies because of that.
So Ayushi, Garima has touched upon all the verticals of PropTech. You tell me, you must have noticed if you guys started integrating these tools, PropTech tools, the NRI investors have increased a lot post-pandemic because of this AR, VR, and even the kind of metaverse has come in. So, what kind of solutions are you noticing are going to be helpful for a developer point of view? And also, what kind of PropTech tools as a brand of yours is also looking into to collaborate or, like Ayush, Karima had mentioned about sustainability being part of it. How would you collaborate with PropTech companies on these front?
So I'll run you through the entire value chain, right? When we look at acquisitions, whenever we're acquiring a plot, it's heavily backed by data. So we get data from a lot of analytical platforms. We study it. We decide what type of design. Whether we first decide whether there is some merit in the plot and whether we're going to sell it or not, all based on the analytics. And then we decide what we should really build on that specific piece of plot. That can range from, I want to do commercial, I want to do residential, luxury residential, mid-income, affordable, student housing. I mean, the spectrum is really wide. All of those decisions are taken based on data analytics. Because now when we're looking at more like 20 million square feet going in development, it has to be scientific. Real estate today has to be scientific. It's no longer, okay, I think this will work and it's going to work. It cannot work like that. So data analytics is like step one for us in that spectrum. Second is, after we've kind of decided, comes the design. And I think design is such a fundamental piece of real estate. If you design wrong, I think first is if you acquire wrong, there's no coming back. Second, if you design wrong, again, there's no coming back. Because then if you design wrong, your costs are going to go up, your saleability is affected, your structure in itself, is not built for the long term. So, and that design has so many ancillary divisions under it. We have architects, we have MEP, we have RCC, we have the facade consultant, landscape, but there are so many across the spectrum. How do you sync it all up in that limited 45-day timeline, which is what I give my team, that you have to have the entire design package ready in 45 days, because I'm acquiring a piece of land, I'm raising funds for it, and I'm going to have to pay a heavy interest, to some fund who have taken those funds from. So I don't have more than 45 days. So how do you run this entire spectrum almost to the stage where you have GFCs so that you can start your work and start excavation in 45 days? Most of the design firms initially would be like, no, we need at least 1 month for concept, 1 month for, I mean, those are real facts. They are designers and they're creators and they take that amount of creative time to come up with a good product. But how can we minimize it? I think BIM is a great solution. Once you have your concept ready, you can get multiple people, on one page and kind of try to churn it out a lot faster. And why it's helpful is because I can see all the coordination on one platform. I think that's a really integral technology tool that's helping us with the entire value chain. That goes into our bill of quantities. We have to estimate, we estimate for the entire project before we actually take it live, because we need to know what our costing is going to look like. So all of that, there are a lot of softwares that do that, right? I can even insert the drawing, it'll study the drawing and it'll give me the actual cost estimation and the quantities back. I just have to plug in the cost numbers, basic cost numbers, and it'll churn out the total project cost. All of this is a great reduction in time and efficiency and man hours, where I can focus on more value creation within the team itself. That's on kind of the spectrum where we're trying to build something. And then of course the entire sales spectrum that all of both Garima and Nidhi touched upon, right from pre-sales, telecallers, answering, we have 25 telecallers just sitting out of our office, apart from the other BPOs that we kind of deal with. It's all all on a software. It's automated, it's running. So the entire sales spectrum runs on proptech, right from incorporating the VR to the extent that I know whether my client is coming from this specific hoarding or this specific Facebook ad. It is specific to the creative of the Facebook ad, and I know that at like a click of a button that he's coming in through that platform. So I think that type of intelligence is really crucial. Third part is the actual engineering and the production bit. So a lot of procurement platforms, similar to what Garima said, and engineering. I think quality check is such a major task, and it's a task because when you're juggling between speed and quality, it's a task for the engineers. Which one should they focus on, but both have to go in tandem. And these softwares help a lot, especially when you're kind of checking the quality, making sure the operational issues are kind of taken away at an early stage. So I think across the spectrum there's so much scope for technology going in at different stages. And I was recently at another session, and that was an AWS and IBM session, and again the topic of discussion there was the role of proptech. And I think the basic conclusion after a very intense discussion of 2-3 hours on the luxury segment and the affordable segment, the basic conclusion was that we're at the cusp of something changing drastically, because in real estate too now there are a lot of young entrepreneurs coming in, leading their teams, young developers coming in, or second gen, third gen, whichever, but a lot of young blood coming into real estate, and they don't want the operational challenges that come with traditional real estate, because in the end it's an engineering heavy business. You have to know how much steel, cement, concrete is coming in, and if you don't control all of that, you cannot run the business. So you have to know all of that, but what is a better way to run it so that it's like a manufacturing unit? And all of this technology kind of helps do that from the production side. How do you kind of transform it into a manufacturing unit? And on the sales side, how do you transform it to an FMCG business? And the culmination of that, we're at the cusp of something beautiful, that the technology can kind of take us from one step to another, and we're at a stage where a lot of people are convinced about using it, and it's just about giving them the right solution and they're gonna switch.
Whatever you just said, I was just imagining if every developer in India talks like how Ayushi has. Don't you agree with that, Garima? The way she's open about the proptech tools, because I'll be honest, there's a lot of hesitance still from the developer front when it comes to, correct me if I'm wrong, Garima, when it comes to proptech tools, or when it comes to incorporating these tools. They are only focused on sales. This complaint I've got from a lot of proptech companies. This is what, when I was looking at you, I was like, if only all the developers could say like this,
our lives would be sorted. Yeah. Honestly, because the solution when we develop, so we are cloud native, and we are world's first cloud native controller company. Now, when you go to a developer, they're like, but people are going to see my data. And I'm like, 24 degrees you're sitting and people are really not interested. But you have to make them understand. Your Aadhaar data is on cloud. Your all financial transactions are on cloud. Yeah. Every data that you could have associated to yourself from you sitting here or you being in Panchgani is on the cloud.
True.
Now, the only thing left was real estate, which is not the most interesting data. But of course, it is data, and every company, I'm sure, in the likes of ours, follow the necessary certifications. But because if they are not second generation, which in her case, I'm very glad that she is, so she understands, because she uses more tools than what anybody else would. So they understand that, these tools are only going to make it more efficient. They are not going to inhibit your privacy and all of that. But if people were to understand, they would understand that what a technology could do within a span of few months for them. It is not going to take man hours and man days and multiple men to be doing it, which is problematic today. Like, I like the part where she said that, like a manufacturing unit, just getting it and churning it out. But that you can only do when you have a certain template, which can be only arrived from data and tools that you're using. I really hope people are much more optimistic about the use of technology rather than think that, I'm going to hold data close to my chest,
Yeah.
then it gets very, very difficult.
No, that's why I said while listening to her, I was kept on like remembering what all entrepreneurs have told me, and especially the ones who are already there from the traditional mindset. They are like, कि क्या करेंगे technology लेके? हमें बस बेचने से मतलब है. So
True.
how does it matter?
True.
So that kind of liners when I get from certain developers, and then proptech guy says, कि this is why we get very difficult to convince them कि how it's gonna help you. So kudos to you if you're going in that line, because whatever you've said till now, the insights you've given, I'm sure the PropTech viewers, entrepreneurs will reach out to Ashar Group. So I want to ask Ayushi, in your opinion, what are the some stereotypes that you would have noticed when it comes to real estate sector you would have encountered? I'm sure you have been there from the very beginning. You joined maybe around 2016, right? 18.
Yeah.
And you must have seen the kind of real estate market has evolved also, but the stereotypes or the biases is still there a bit for the women in Indian real estate sector. Or have you came across, or have you even challenged such stereotypes?
So I think there are stereotypes, but I also think that it's changed quite a bit since even when I joined, and I know that it's only going to get better. But I think one very common one, if I'm being candid with you, is when I joined I was 21. I was just out of college, and although I'd done quite a bit of work, I was with JP Morgan, and I was with a real estate private equity fund, and I worked with a venture capital fund. So I kind of had my share of experience. I did 1.5 years of that, and then I decided that I want to kind of put in my all into this business, because that's what I see myself doing in the long term. I think definitely people thought that I was very young. So one thing I started doing was I started wearing glasses, so my numbers like barely anything, but I still sometimes wear glasses to look a little bit older and look a little bit more mature, because I think people take you a little bit more seriously. That was something that I definitely faced. Second was, I think a lot of people assumed that I've maybe studied marketing, and I think marketing is great. I take care of marketing even right now, but I don't think it's okay, women, and that's why she's going to do marketing. I studied finance and consulting. I worked in all finance roles. I wanted to be an investment banker for the longest time.
That must have raised a lot of eyebrows once they would have understood, oh, you're done finance. I'm sure.
I don't think anyone still knows that because they just assume the other side, which I think, it's okay. I think your work speaks, and I just think that if women are doing marketing and killing it, that's amazing, but I don't think it's restricted to just that in any way. I do a lot of things, and I think those were the two very basic stereotypes maybe, but I don't think, having said that, I don't think I've honestly faced as much of stereotyping. We have a very open office culture. We have 50% of our workforce is women. I come from a family where I've been given enough and more freedom to make my own choices and make responsible choices. And I've been taught that with freedom comes responsibility, and that no one can stop you if you are determined and hardworking, and and of course there are times where you have to prove yourself extra, and I take that as a challenge sometimes, because I'm learning more in doing that, right? So I think there's beauty in that, and sometimes I feel more, okay, I really deserved it because I maybe worked a little bit harder and I learned more in the process. And right now I think I just want to be a sponge and absorb everything that I can from a male, woman, anyone, any expert in any field, and I just want to be a sponge. So yeah, I don't think there is room for any type of ego or anything of that sort when it comes to that. Your capability is what determines your level in at least an organizational spectrum. It's not your gender, it's not any other form of anything else that possibly discriminates. It's just your sheer capability, and more than anything your ability to work hard and prove yourself. And I think that's
how we all want, but mostly that doesn't happen.
I think if we, I mean, I honestly, I'm just so kind of like focused on that principle, and I live in my idealistic bubble that even if today you come and tell me that no, this is not how maybe XYZ person is saying, I'm like, it's okay. Eventually, at some point, they will realize that, you know, I'm here to stay and that I have substance, and they will realize it in their own time, maybe.
So you want your actions to speak louder.
Always, always. Yeah.
So, Garima, you tell me, you must have seen in the proptech domain also, because we have very few women in proptech startups, especially in India. And even while dealing with developers or the vendors, what kind of stereotypes have you noticed or you have challenged or encountered with?
So people say whenever we start discussing about diversity that it's about breaking the glass ceiling. So first of all, the problem is that ceiling is very high in this space. To 7 million women working in real estate, there are 50 million men.
Yeah.
And especially the boardroom seats aren't many. So when you have to go to a decision maker, or if you are in any setting in real estate, probably you would be the only one who will be identified as yourself, because everybody else is largely going to be a male. I went to a panel recently and I told them, I'm like all shades of gray and I'm the only one in blue. And it just shows, right? So definitely the stereotype has been there. In fact, I second with Ayushi on that. Somehow they think women are the most creative beings, which is very good to know, very good to hear. Music to a person like me who doesn't have an iota of creativity, that they suddenly assume either you're doing sales or you're doing marketing, because if you're a average looking face also, then you have to be in sales, right? Because people will entertain you. That is called foot in the door.
Yeah.
That's how largely hirings happen in real estate. And unfortunately, because that has happened over decades now, that is the mindset. So when you go to a developer also, sitting as a co-founder, the initial thought that they would have is, okay, you know, madam, first of all, the way of speaking is really different. So, you know, madam, so you tell me, so marketing and all you take care of. I'm like, first of all, my name is Garima, so let's stick to that. And secondly, I make the product. I'm the technical person here. I don't do sales, and I definitely don't do marketing. I really like contributing my ideas there, but I make the product. So everything that you're using here, I'm the one who decides if it's on or off. That is what I do. A lot of times, because I'm also a very strong headed person and I'm also very direct, I don't think that is a quality which is very appreciable, especially in an industry which is largely dominated by a certain gender who also view women a little differently. But for me, it has worked pretty well. I am very respected now. People are also a little intimidated. People are also a little afraid, but works with me. I call a spade a spade. I could be sitting in a meeting with anybody and could call it out. So now actually they've come to appreciate this part. So people, when they call up my co-founder, they'll be like, please do get Garima, because we really have a lot of technical questions and we know that she can solve that. We have customers now who call me up directly. Like there are large organizations that we work with who manufacture a lot of equipments, and I will get calls from them, and they tell me, "We're calling you because we know that you can do it. You can build this product. We haven't been able to do it. So, you know, if we can collaborate in some way." It is good to hear, but that's also because I have always been a certain kind of a person. Be talking to me in a certain manner. I'm sitting in a meeting. I will not, if you address me in a certain way, or if you think I'm doing something else, I'll be out there telling you that, you know, no, this is not how it is. And not very appreciated at that point of time, but in long run, at least has worked well for me. Also, a lot of times they think that, you know, okay, if there are two co-founders, so me and my co-founder is a male, they think, okay, you know, he's the guy who's going to be calling the shots or taking the decisions. Now, internal stories, I'm not dwelling into it, but we have a very good relation in which we figure out data takes the decisions. I don't take and he doesn't take. So in the organization, there's never been a problem. In fact, for the longest time, I was the only woman who was there. Today, we have much more because we've tried to hire much more. And nobody in the organization thinks that, okay, you know, because it's coming from Garima, should we think about it? They're very, in fact, they are more than keen to know what I'm thinking so that they can just get started on it, because again, when it comes to taking decisions inside the company, I'm very strong-headed. I know, okay, this is to be done. But when you go out, initially they would ask me, okay, the other guy has not come, we wanted to discuss about business and finances and negotiate. I'm like, you do it with me. I will do that. Because at times I would be really, really irritated then. And eventually, I think they also realize, a lot of people that you interact with over and over a period of time, they're okay with it. In the new places, at times you're like, okay, all the battles are not mine to fight. So certain places you're just like, yeah, okay, whatever you think. Certain places you're like, no, I really need to hold to my ground. So because the industry for so long has been stereotyped on creativity and selling stuff to women, that is what eventually they'll see a pretty face, like they'll see her, I'm sure they would say, oh, I'm sure all the digital ads that I'm seeing, she's the mind behind her. They'll see her, they'll be like, oh, I know, she'll know all the data about Dubai real estate, because that's how it is. They'll see a grumpy old man sitting, they'll be like, good with numbers, finances. So I'm sure that is what exists, but if you try to change, it will change. If you are pretty adamant and you're very okay being also a little intimidating, I think it works.
What's your take on this?
No, I think, first of all, a very good question, I think, and a very bold question. I think it's been 22 years in the corporate career now for me. My daughter is 18 now, so if I relate a little what I would want her to do at this moment, I would always want her to go out, experience the world outside, and then come to India. Now, to be very candid on this question, I think I've been in various sectors. It's not only real estate. While this question points out specifically to the real estate, but I would definitely want to answer this question in all the sectors in a corporate life. So I've been a banker, I've been like I've been in this banking industry for a very long time, real estate for about 12 years now. Wherever we go, especially till the time you're a team member, it's absolutely fine. The moment you become you go on a leadership positions, it becomes extremely, extremely difficult, because that's the point where you still are a female, and probably, for example, you have a team of people. I've led a team of about 300, 400 people also at one time. The moment everything is going on well, till the time you're fine, everything goes on well. The moment you know that you have to make a stand, and there are certain things which and sales is a field where you have to go rough. You just can't be, okay, or you can't just kind of be comfortable with everything which is going around. Exactly. And especially when you are at a group level, you have larger responsibility. When you have, you're running like a 1,700 crore company, it becomes imperative that you need to take your stand, go for some very hard calls also at times. That's the time where probably that, I would specifically say that factor that you're a female and probably a male would not want to listen to you in that respect comes up very evidently. The second point is that, how you're always judged about in terms of your appearance, in terms of how you are as a person, how you talk, even a line when you're talking, when you're actually at a dominating position. Every time you've been judged, it's never, you're never free, that, things go absolutely free. You're just free to talk with, the group of people the way you just are. While I've been very lucky, because I've also been a part of an organization where people have really, really helped me to grow in my career. Kudos to those males. But I've always kind of felt this, that life is a little difficult when it comes to female. We are just battling up with everything at this moment. It's not only the corporate, it's about how you are a homemaker, you're a mother, you're a kind of a entrepreneur, you're kind of having a multiple functions around. But when you're in the office, you're just a normal corporate person. So obviously that adds up, because there's a 50% life which you're running with same level of responsibilities, and there's 50% of life which you're kind of at the corporate. What it looks like is exactly the same life that you've kind of taken a car, you've kind of sat down in the car in the morning and you've just come to the office. But actually the first half of the life has gone, making things ease for the family, and the second half has gone in making ease for the corporate. That balance between the two is really, really difficult. probably being a female, you have lesser friends in the corporate. Probably a male to a male would be more comfortable when it comes to hanging around or probably things like that. But you as a female, it's both sides. You as a female would not want to kind of get along with everything and anything which is happening. That's the boundary a female builds up. You have selected people you would want to kind of associate with. But apart from that, I think it's largely how you come out when you kind of are working in a corporate. So I think, still, and again, I'll point out at the global market, because I've been kind of working with all these communities, be it be a Pakistani, be it be a Russian, Chinese, Japanese, and I think, some of my team members are different nationality. This is absolutely different there. It's like, the kind of environment, if a female, and especially in the real estate, because where you have to be always decked up, because, that's how the sector is all about. I think you're always and constantly judged upon because you're a very different person to look and feel. That kind of friendliness, the kind of, I would say, and that's not for me, basically, that can be for any different female who is working in real estate today. Because and the same if you go to the global markets, it's completely different. Today, the attires, the kind of way they project, they have been looked at a genuine salesperson. It's not about, you're looking like a fancy person, that you are not knowledgeable. It's about you are looking fancy, but you can have a good level of knowledge, and that's well understood in the global markets. So as a female, I feel, again, coming back to my first statement, today I'm a mother, and probably, my daughter is 18 now, so I still feel scared that, my daughter has to first go out and then come in. So yeah, that's the basic difference between the two.
So Nidhi, I have noticed in Indian real estate market, when it comes to boardroom decision makers or leadership roles, they're quite handful of women. Correct me if I'm wrong. What is the problem, or where are we lacking? Is this because there are less women who are opting for real estate careers, or like where are we going wrong? Because if I see any committee events, or if I see any boardrooms, any pictures being released in press, I don't see much women in that frame. So what do you think about that?
Well, again, I would say a very beautiful question. I think, how genuine a woman is. See, first of all, women per se is very emotional about how she works. If she's on the job, she's on the job. She really thinks it as if, she has to do this. So per se, when there is a female working, she's always on the job. She's probably would want to kind of not go around, or probably chip in a kind of a very friendly manner around. Now, again, my what I said in the earlier discussion, I think it's all about judging and keep on judging, and because of which there is a very big opinion which gets formed in the corporate. When there is an opinion, there is a gangism. When there is a gangism, probably there are certain women who can probably sustain that kind of a pressure and who comes out. They can handle that kind of, they have mental stability of coming out of that pressure, that you're kind of left alone. You're the person who have spoken right in the boardroom, but would be last in the queue to probably ask that, or probably will be encouraged of getting it there. I think women who sustain this kind of a pressure go forward. Women who do not sustain that kind of a pressure resign. And honestly speaking, I have seen a lot of female probably sticking to their basics just because they don't want to get into that zone of not getting accepted over the entire forum. And this is very common, and this is very common across the sectors. I feel very strongly for women who probably, and this also comes from women to women also. At times, I mean, very sorry to see this, that even in the corporates, probably women to women also dominate in certain respect. I think if that basic sense of empathy is created between women's first and then later on the male front, I think it will give a lot of more respect to the womanhood, and it will give a lot of more respect to the views of a female. I've kind of seen many a times that women have great views, but probably they'll always be looked upon from an angle whether it is really, I mean, it'll again be judged upon, is what I can say, whether that is right, whether that is wrong. Certain roles, I've been in this role, I've kind of headed a company for broker, which is a channel partner network, in my earlier days of my career. And trust me, that was the time where I myself asked a question whether I would be able to, because it's a male dominated field. Yeah. And I was heading national sales from the agency side. But I think I was lucky enough to get people around me who supported me, who protected me, in fact, for that fundamental. So it's both ways. I did face certain problems in terms of, getting more, open, getting more ease. Being a female, you can't let yourself be very easy, but you would want people open up and talk to you and take you as genuine, this thing. So yeah, so these are the basic difference which happens between a male and female. But my only conclusion to this entire thing is, you should keep walking. There will be path which will be very difficult. There'll be times when you'll definitely, go back and you'll have certain tears in your eyes, but that should not take you away. There'll be one more sunshine and you have to walk. I think that's the only thing.
Very beautiful. So Garima, I'm quite active in LinkedIn. Okay, so I see a lot of high leadership role men putting a lot of team photos and everything. There are moments where I have controlled myself by commenting, where are the women? So what is your take? Why we are not seeing much of women when it comes to leadership roles or when it comes to decision makers? There are women in Indian industry, real estate industry, but quite handful. Like my LinkedIn, I'll go through and scroll, I'll see very few women who are like a CEO or CBO or the head of marketing, but rest, there's not much happening there.
So I think there are a bunch of reasons for it. It's just not one. First of all, you have to start at a junior level, being inclusive. You are going to make the person at the helm of something once that person has finished a certain life cycle of working with you. That inclusion in real estate actually does not exist. Now, the unfortunate part is that in any real estate company, if you were to go by that, these funds which give money to a real estate company to develop, do they have a gender diversity in place? They don't. Now, when your slate is blank, then people take decisions as they were to. And traditionally, this is how decisions have been taken, that, okay, in this industry, because it is a very rough industry, this industry is not considered, it's not FMCG. It is not media. So, okay, because it's not the most glam industry, the only glam part comes when somebody has to go out and sell. And that's about
why you say it's rough industry. It's not like developers are going there and dirtying their hands by taking the
correct. You're absolutely right.
Everything.
But that's what their mindset is that because if construction is happening right now, how would a woman take care of it? What they're not understanding, she doesn't have to go buy saria from somewhere.
Well, she doesn't have to put cement actually there. Like what? Why?
But that is what the consideration is, that okay, it's not a woman's job.
She won't be able to manage laborers or the vendors.
And the thing is that she doesn't have to manage the laborers. There are people to manage the laborers, and she manages those people. And I think women are much better when it comes to management. And they can multi-manage. They could manage vendors, they could manage their own employees, and they could manage 40,000 other things also at the same time without saying, oh, I have so much on my plate. Because that's how they're used to. They're used to doing multiple things at once and switching like this. They are the real quantum computing. But when it comes to real estate, they think, okay, which are these parts, because women, they are a little softer. Which are these parts in which we can include women? So, okay, sales. But again, you will not find a sales head who's a woman. Or in very rare cases would you find, because a lot of men are not okay with women bosses in this industry. They have worked in certain segments 25, 30 years, and they're like, I had an amazing boss. Ask them how many of them had women bosses. And if they did, for how long did they last there? And what good do they have to say about them? Because men are also still not very accepting of a lot of things. Having said everything that, we have gender diversity, inclusion, if you had the same setup, would you be happy about it? Would they be really happy about it? Or is this all on paper that, okay, let's have a new department called innovation. We'll have women here. Okay, great. But are they also being included in the board? Are their decisions really being heard? Are they the ones bringing about change? the change has to come from within. And somehow they've been always skeptics of this. If a woman were to sit in front of them, their own organization or any other, they would still consult a man that, okay, I have heard this, all of that. What do you think about it? That's not how it works. Why are you dissing the entire opinion of somebody who has worked equally or more hard on it? And one has to be very gender agnostic. I would not even say that, you have to put women on a pedestal, but then be agnostic. Then go by either a data or something which affirms that belief, which is still more scientific in nature, than by saying that, no, I don't believe what she has said. You are dissing in your own environment, and everybody sees that. People see their own environment, and somebody who's a senior manager today is going to go become a CXO tomorrow somewhere else, and take the same environment along with them. That, theek hai, do we have so many women in the company? Doesn't matter which level. It does matter which level. Because if you don't have women in the boardroom, nobody's going to be sitting about them and then finding out or figuring out how to make it better for the other woman who has to walk this path. True. Somebody has to walk to make the others run. True. Now, let the person walk. Because I have also seen, in whatever time I have spent in this industry right now, I've seen few women being at positions which sound very important, but are actually more for namesake. Now, if they are not included in those decision makings, if they are not actually important, they cannot do much. And they are not namesake. They would do as much as you would. What would a man do differently? Instead of getting cement from Ultra Cement, he'll go get it from somewhere else. No, he would not do all of that. Yeah. He would have somebody who would do all of that and manage that, cost control that, do things a little better. Women are much better in tech. In fact, I have seen women work in manufacturing units or do codes. They are really, really good. But still, you would want somebody else to tell you that, okay, she's done this well, but I have somebody else who's telling me that, okay, she has done this well, to validate her authenticity or her work. That is not good. Despite of people saying that they're very transparent and very inclusive, they still keep a layer of vetting and validation over women in organizations. And that's the problem. So a natural thing becomes, when you go and you meet a woman in the company, you think, is she related to somebody here? Does she know somebody here? Because that's how bad it has become. Yeah, it should not be like that, honestly. It is pretty bad, because it is bad for all the women folk. Just not one. It could be somebody who's in a housekeeping or somebody who's a CEO at a place. They are putting it in all to get validated every day, because every day a woman gets questioned. Every day they have to come to work and prove their worth. I'm worth it. I don't think any man goes into a work every day and says that, I'm worth it. They are doing their thing and they're not being questioned for their authority or anything else. But every time a woman goes, because people also expect warmth from them. That, okay, how could she be so rude on me? How could she be so hard on me? Because that's how traditionally they are. It's good to have it at home, even, but your mother shouts at you. When you're working, and if you're not doing the right work, of course, you will have to bear the brunt of it. And it's not because she's a woman or you're a man, it's because she's in a position to be telling you that what you've done is probably not right. So listen to it as you would otherwise from your preliminary school teacher or your mother, who you consider are the best people for you, a nursery teacher and a mother. She's not trying to do any different. She'll not try to demean you. In fact, she will put it in rather nice words than what any other person would. And I have never seen a woman being very irrational in saying something, just because I was angry, just because my mood was off. I don't think they do that. Yeah. That's what, despite of saying the right thing, that's what gets blamed. So I think that's rather unfortunate. We really need to bring down these multiple layers of validation, vetting, and making women coming to work and prove themselves every day, so that they also feel more included and comfortable. Yeah. Because the problem is, once that you start climbing stairs in your own organization, of course, you are a little more aloof. The higher you are, the more aloof you're going to be. And not everybody can then just gang up against you and say, okay, but maybe she's not doing that good a job. It's a very lonely place. It's a better idea, judge everybody by how they work and what their output at work is, and the world will be a very different place. Don't get inclusivity also in your mind. If you just get a very unbiased thought process, I think we'll be in a much better position then.
So let's talk about the positive then. What are the positive changes that you have seen when it comes to gender diversity and inclusion in this particular industry?
I think a lot. I think across the spectrum. Before it was, as everyone said, it was just maybe sales and marketing that you would see a lot of hiring in. Today it can be any vertical, legal, compliance, architecture. So I guess it's field agnostic. It depends on your caliber. Second would be, now there is a lot of flexibility sometimes in terms of working hours and all of that, which does help in terms of time management, especially at different stages in your career. I think another positive is that we have a lot of policies in place that are more women friendly, whether it is a maternity leave, whether it is different types of things, even paternity leave for that matter. We have those policies in place so that we can get good talent coming in. And lastly, I think professionalization of the entire industry. I think that now real estate is a very, very booming sector. I mean, you see so much good talent coming in, which we didn't see before. Before, we had to get people and train them from ground up. They may be they would be from completely different fields, and you bring them into real estate and then you mold them the way you would want to. Now there are so many programs, courses, people who are actually inclined to real estate, they can take it up and then they can come in a little bit more polished and knowing what they want out of real estate. And if they have that type of clarity, it becomes a lot easier to work with and kind of train them, including women. So there are MBA programs, undergrad programs. So people actually take those up and have that clarity in mind that, okay, we want to take on real estate. And lastly, I would say is that managers. Now, this can be subjective because, you get to decide who your manager is, right? In a company, you have to make sure that you're investing in the right type of manager, more than even the company, I would say, at least. And that's what I learned from one of my managers when I was at JP back then. If that manager is not invested in your growth, whatever the company may be doing, because you're like at the bottom of the ladder. So what the company is doing, yes, it's great in an idealistic world to be connected with the main vision and OKRs and all of that. But if my manager doesn't care about me and treat me well, I will be traumatized for the rest of my future career. I'll always take something, I'll be intimidated by it, or I'll always take something the wrong way. Why should you do that? When you know that you have that clarity that I want to work in a certain type of way, I think the least you can do is invest in the right manager, and that can make all the difference. So now I think we're seeing a lot more inclusivity in terms of managers as well. Of course, there are both sides of the spectrum, but at least you have that choice. So I think that in itself is a positive, that you can choose, and you have so much clarity or so much access in terms of social media that you can know your manager's thoughts, you can ask for references, you can do all of that stuff. And yeah, I think that's one of the biggest positives in my mind.
So Garima, according to you, what is the positive change you have observed when it comes to gender diversity and inclusion?
I think in general, more women are entering the workforce, and I'm not going to restrict it to real estate, but in general, you see a lot more women be engineers or MBAs or a lot of other things, and in general, they're entering a lot of different industries. And now the interesting part is that if you have worked in an industry, let's say FMCG, you can still enter a real estate. Let's say you were doing some sort of a tech stuff there, which a real industry lacks in. You can go there. And now industries, for cross industry integration, they are becoming very accepting of it. And this is what works well. I've met a lot of women who are at the helms of their division and doing different things. Somebody's come from telecom. They were heading, say, for example, IoT practice there, because a telecom is a leading player to be doing IoT. And now they have come in real estate to do that IoT. Somebody was in a marketing background and had their own agency, and now they've come to an IPC. IPC requires, again, some sort of specialized marketing which has to cut across how marketing was done by the IPCs today. So now, because real estate is also becoming a little more open to innovation, they are getting a lot of people from other industries, and other industries definitely have had women much more than what a real estate traditionally has had. So if you were somebody who was in a telecom or a FMCG or a media company, and you have done a specialization in those companies, now those people are coming to a real estate segment and doing that specialization, or rather say bringing forth that specialization for the first time in this industry. So I think that is a very interesting time to be in. And even when I look at the startup industry, again, I am not from real estate. I would like to say I'm just from startups. So from Oyo to Momsco, everything has been pretty different. And today, by stroke of luck, I am in real estate. Similarly, there are a lot of other women which have nothing to do with real estate before, but they have just liked solving a problem. They just go at it. They want to solve a problem, and they've come into real estate. Now you can't stop them from coming. They have done a lot of things before. Somebody has solved some problem. Somebody has been a CEO of a large firm before. They will come and they'll solve a problem. They are not even thinking about that, whether I'm a woman or which industry I'm in. They know that this is a problem big enough with a solution that is big enough too. If it can be scaled, I can do it too. So I think that's the most interesting thing that has happened. And because now so many startups are there in real estate, you will end up meeting some or the other company which will have at least one woman co-founder. I'm not saying 10 on 10, but at least 2 on 10, which is still a better number than what it started out when we started back in 2017. So you do end up meeting women, and if you were to ask them, but why this industry? And they would say, why not? The solution can be scaled up. We're not thinking anything else. Probably, even if it's a concrete mixer, we can do it better. Off Business, for example, has one of the co-founders is a woman who's built $1 billion business apart from just the off business itself. Now they didn't think that, okay, off business, again, very boring, very this, that, whatever. Solution big enough, so might as well, somebody will solve it, might as well I do it. So I think that's what is leading to the change, which will keep changing. The organization will keep on getting more and more people from diverse industries, and startups will get people from anywhere and everywhere. It could be anybody who's just looking at the next big thing to solve.
Nidhi, what's your take?
I think, in my opinion, it's very important to identify this question into two parts as to what is that duration, what we are talking about, or we are kind of having a conversation about what was before and what is now. So what I assume is that kind of duration what 15 years back was, because I've been in this sector like 20 years now. I think if I safely assume that what was 15 years back and what is 15 years now, I think the change which I clearly see, when I used to work way back 2003, I'm talking about 2003, 2004 and 2005. I think that time at a leadership role, I could not probably, and I was starting my career that time, I'm sure, I could not see much of the females getting encouraged to that level. And when I say that part, so there are two parts to it. One is that all those people who are reporting to you, and one is that the people who are at the top ladder. Now this conversation is all about the top ladder. I think there is a drastic shift in the mind where it comes to all the people who are at a leadership position. While there is a big force who still understand that she's a female and probably she said this is wrong, but there is a league of people which is the leadership who have been very, very educated about the fact and who have been very inclusive about this fact that a woman can give a lot of insight about how a business can be operated. I think per se, if I take an example about myself, I have a fantastic partner who probably helps me to understand as to how business are, and probably a line of business completely depending on me. A decision, whether it is a financial decision, whether it is a developer decision, I think I probably can feel that kind of inclusiveness in the leadership role for all the people who have been understanding, who has a clear understanding about these roles, about a female at the top ladder, and who closely work with those female. I think there's a lot of reliability, there is a lot of confidence which they're showing now, which probably was missing, because at that time it was more about probably women on the top leadership position would come at an age of about 50 or 55, and that was all banks and other institutions. But I think I probably see very, very young women who are coming up at these roles on the top leadership position, only because of the leaders who are able to understand better. Yeah, so that's my view on this.
So in this first panel discussion, because having all three powerful women coming together for the first time in Realty NXT, I have introduced this segment called Real Talk, Unfiltered Conversations with me. So I'll keep it very short. Like, I want a quick, thoughtful, like, don't take much time. It's not like a rapid, but be quick about it so that we can immediately know in what mind frame you're answering this question. So my first question to all of you guys are, can you describe a significant challenge or setback you faced in your career and how you overcame that? What lessons did you learn from that experience? Let's start from you, Ayushi.
I don't know if this is a challenge per se, but it was a difficult thing back in the time, was whether I should return back and join the business, or I had a full-time offer with JP Morgan, and whether I should continue that. And I think that was a life-changing decision at that point, and I decided to come back and take on this role. And I think the learning curve initially I thought was too steep, because I wasn't trained in this. Everything that I learned was kind of on the job. So that it took me at least 6 months of just shadowing my father, and probably 1.5 years of, learning, scouting through different departments, just learning. But I think keeping at it, and then eventually I think I got a good grip. But it was 2 years of a lot of hard work and a little bit of being clueless about a lot of things. But I think, that was one of the best decisions I think I made.
Nidhi?
I think very similar to Ayushi. I think 2021, I was at peak of my career. I think it was all the real estate top firms which were calling me at probably all the roles possible, especially in the sales. And that was the time when I decided to start my own entrepreneurship. I think that was the toughest decision for me, and I'm very glad that though the first year was very, very, very difficult, because it was not only probably a financial shift, it was also a mental shift. You have to do everything from the scratch. You have to make the company, you have to take your licenses, you have to go to a foreign country, and you have to start your own business. You probably would not be able to hire immediately, and you have to work everything. But I think that time has taught me a lot, and I'm very glad that today, by end of 2 years, I've kind of made 2 successful companies, and I'm extremely happy about my decision of leaving the corporate and starting my own entrepreneurship.
Garima?
So for me, I would say the onset of COVID, because we were barely a year and a half old as an organization, and suddenly COVID struck. Now you're a new organization, you've put everything that you had into it. Instead of opting for any roles that you could have gotten anywhere, you put your everything that you say, from financial to mind, everything at one place, and suddenly the industry that you're in is zero. It's completely nullified, and you really don't know what to do, because also, apart from you, it's just not about you, it's your employees. You're a very small organization. It's not that you come with a balance sheet. Everybody needs to be paid on time. At the same time, they cannot think that where am I going from here. So you can't even share your fears with everybody, because when you're on a job, you can still talk to people, understand. Here you are to yourself. You, in your head, you really don't know what is going to happen, because those were times back in March, we did not know what would May be, what would December be, what would next year be. But I would say, I would call it a cooling off period, because before COVID, we were making a little different solution. COVID provided us time that, if such a time ever comes, what is it that adds value to a real estate sort of a vertical? So that helped us pivot into making an organization where today we take a lot of pride in that we're making world's first native BMS, which was never the thing, or first cloud native solution. So I think, but when it was happening, those were very difficult 8 to 9 months, in which me and my co-founder, we would often discuss, where is it heading? What have we decided to do? Had we been in any industry right now, we would have seen some light of the day. A SaaS, alcohol, or anything would have worked. We came into a segment which we were talking to the companies who were into real estate who said, really, we don't know what's going to happen, which was not very encouraging. But I would say that once that time passes, you really are stronger than before. So what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, at least worked in our case.
True. So reflecting on your journey, not just the proptech journey, the journey you have had with regards to your career, are there any specific individuals, books, or resources that have a profound impact on your personal growth and development, shaping the person you are today? I know it's quite deep, but I'm sure our viewers would like to know that.
I definitely, if there is a person apart from my parents, like everybody, definitely they're the first teachers, and my mother has been a role model all throughout. But if I would have to say a person apart from outside of my family, there's a mentor who I have had. My first job was Oyo, and I found a mentor there. And when I started working, I thought, wish this person was my teacher in school, my professor in college, and I always get to work with him. Within 3 months, I was a different person. When I went to Oyo, I was a very chill person. Work, it'll happen, everything is going to happen, everything chill. Here, I was made to think every day, every decision that you take, every data point that you need to know. How do you get better day on day? And that person would question me so much that I started questioning myself. Now, before going to him, I need to be really prepared, ready. I just cannot go, hunky-dory, very nice, I've made a PPT. He would just shoo me off. This is not going to work. A very strict taskmaster, a very hard teacher. But eventually I started thinking, like, if he were to do this, how would he think? Which really helped me. And even today, it's been so many years that I worked with him. At times when I'm stuck somewhere, I'll just text him, boss, are you available? And he'd be like, yeah, okay. I'll let you know when I am. And he would still help me out, which has really made me a very different person. I thought that I would be an individual contributor because I do my job well. One question that he once day asked me, will you be always this, or will you ever think of becoming a CEO? I'm like, I want to become a CEO. He's like, you never are like this. You really need to change. So while he was hard and everything, but I would say that taught me a lot. And even today, I go back to that mentor, and I think everybody needs to have that mentor in your workplace as well.
Yeah.
Because parents are really nice to you, they are good to hear you, but you also need somebody who's not that nice, who tells you these are not the really good things about you, these are so many flaws, which definitely are there. And when it comes to books, I think I read a lot. I read 3 to 4 books at once, and I really like Phil Knight's Shoe Dog. That seems to be one of my favorite. I also write the SpaceX books. I like pretty much every book that has been ever written on Steve Jobs. There's not a book I haven't read. So because that, I just find it, that entire idea of creating a product, I don't think anybody else could be that passionate about it. And so I read a lot. I also now have started writing a little. So I think with this, a lot of times I have thoughts in my mind, what would I want other people to know about a journey that I've seen, not very long, but short. So I've also started writing. So I think that helps.
What about you, Ayushi?
2 books, I think, would be it's a lighter one, but I think it teaches you a lot, is Good to Great by Jim Collins. And a heavier book, which it's very heavy, but it's Principles by Ray Dalio. I have not seen a book more organized than that, but in spite of it's that thick, and I'm still reading it. It's been 1.5 years, and now I go back to it only when I need motivation, or I feel like my mind is too cluttered and I need to declutter. So I haven't gotten through the entire book. I think I have a very small part left, but both of these books I think are game changing.
But apart from books, what do you think, how, reflecting on your journey, what has made you the person you are today? Like, is there any kind of mentor, individual, or someone?
There is, of course, there are mentors and people who I really go to for advice, but because it's a family business and I've grown talking business, with my grandfather, with my father, with my nana, nani, grandmother, my mom, who's a really, really strong, straightforward woman. it's my family. It's day in day out we talk business. We don't get bored of it. We learn from each other because we're all like such different personalities, and it's always like, okay, how would my dadu do it, or how would my dad do it, because they would both probably do it in very different ways. Or how would my mom deal with this situation, again very different. But because I come from a business family, I think it's very strongly rooted in our kind of DNA.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nidhi, what about you?
So I'll kind of divide it into two parts very quickly. I think the first, material influence. I'm not a very ardent reader, so I think there's just one movie which is very close to my heart, and I don't know, it doesn't relate to any kind of a corporate or any kind of a big yarn, so-called, but there's something which pinches or something which really takes me high, and that movie is Queen. I don't know, somehow, and I'm being very candid and open about it, that whenever I'm down, I kind of watch that movie and there's something which instantly happens and I'm like kicked. The other part of it is the family. Of course, while I have a fantastic support of my husband, all the near and dear, like my partner and, you know, all of it, I've gone through a very tough time during my I've kind of lost my entire family in my, on a small road accident, and I had no option. So it was just that very quickly I knew that I have responsibilities. I had to kind of, get on my feet and support whatever is left now. And that's from my mother's side. And the way she stood up, after this entire incident of our family, I think that made me a lot of, she was an inspiration that if she can, why can't I, after she losing a young son and everything in that accident, so why not I? So I think that was one point where I felt that I did not have that option for several years. I had to be very strong.
I'll ask one important thing from you only. What do you believe are some of the most critical skills or qualities that professionals need to cultivate in order to thrive in today's dynamic and competitive business environment?
I'll again keep it very simple. I think while there are so many phrases like sincerity and discipline and this and that, I think what I have observed is honesty. I think that's a very, very strong thing. You need to be honest. You need to be very honest with the people you're working. I think you need to be very honest with the organization which you're working. You need to give time. You need to give time to the situations. You need to give time to yourself, and you need to be honest to the the overall time which is there. So I think one quality which I seek in any person today I interview, or probably I kind of would want to, I think talent can be taught. Everything can be taught, but honesty is inbuilt. I think honesty is one word.
What about you, Ayushi?
Honesty, definitely. And I think the second is initiative, because there's only a certain extent to which I can motivate you. You have to kind of have that self-motivation and ability to, like, I may be wrong, but let me just take an initiative. If I fail, I fail. No one's here to judge me, but at least I'll take the initiative and maybe I'll learn something on the way. So yeah, honesty and initiative for me.
Being a self-starter is important.
Yeah.
What about you, Garima?
I would say passion and discipline. Because a lot of days when nothing works, discipline for somebody really works. And passion is what something I search for in people. If you're only hungry to do better every day and compete with yourself every day, then I don't have to be bothered about you. I'm sure you can do much better, much beyond what my expectation is of you. So whenever even I interview somebody, I would always have questions around where they were ever able to bring about their passion, because you really can't put it into people. So that's something that I like to see in people. Let's say it's a mirroring thing which I try to find out, because if I know I find such people, I don't have to worry about a lot of things.
I can see a bit of a Steve Jobs influence on that. So last not the least, I want to know from all our women panelists, what advice or insights would you like to share with aspiring women professionals who aim to make a mark in the Indian real estate industry? Let's start with you, Ayushi.
I think I touched upon this, but one is to find a good mentor who will invest in your journey and is equally invested as you. Second would be to take initiative. There is no right or wrong. We're all just learning along the way, and don't be afraid to explore something if you want to. And third is, I think, write effectively and write with clarity. Writing is such an underrated skill, but it is, I think it gives you clarity, and then when you're presenting, writing PPTs, all of that, I think falls under the same bucket for me. Communication skills. It just changes, it gives you clarity is one, but I think the other person who may or may not be confused, it just kind of, the world explodes in front of them when you kind of present with clarity. So I think these three things.
What about you?
You get an opportunity, you make the most of it. Real estate is just another opportunity. Stop thinking that, who is it right now dominated by. You go there, you make your mark. Once you make your mark, there'll be several to follow you. It's just another thing that you do. You do so many things so well. So I would say be very uninhibited. Don't be scared about entering this industry. It is like any other industry, as long as you're on your own. Nothing matters. There are few good people also. In every industry, there are a bunch of people. In any industry, not 100% of the people are nice and waiting for you to do well or to grow. There are some nice people. Find them out. Always be very unashamed in asking for help, in asking for mentorship, especially. When you reach out, people know how serious you are about a lot of things. And I'm sure you've met with a lot of senior people in real estate. They are very helpful. From somebody who's leading a Rustamji to a Hiranandani, if you ever were to reach out to them, I've had some of the most wonderful meetings with them where they've sat down and wanted to understand what do I do and how did I do that so early. There are people, reach out to the right people, and there are enough and more opportunities to make of.
True.
I think, I think it's very clear. I mean, be very true to your mission. That's it. There are going to be a lot of deviations. There can be a lot of people who you may want to kind of, or probably the reasons where you can just get deviated. Be very true to the reason why you've entered into a corporate life. Do good to your family and to yourself. I think that's plain and simple.
So now, as a moderator, I would like to conclude this discussion. I want to sincerely extend my appreciation for you guys coming here today and sharing the amazing insights, amazing expertise, and candidness throughout the discussion. Thank you so much for coming today on Let's Talk Business by RealtyNXT.
And thank you for being such a great moderator and leading us through a 2.5 hour discussion.
We've kind of. It was really amazing, especially to be a part where I see majority of us sitting here today. So superb effort. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thoroughly enjoyed the session, and I think it was pretty interactive.
Thank you so much.